an android searching for his missing creator. Two families swallowed by a black hole and spat out into another universe. In the 1970s, projects like these were supposed to become television series. Instead, they left us with only one lonely TV movie. Today, let's look at 6 such pilots. And if you remember any others you stumbled across while channel surfing, tell me about them in the comments. The Questor Tapes was Gene Roddenberry's 1974 attempt to create another science fiction series after Star Trek. It follows an android designed by the missing Professor Emil Vaslovic. When the project team fails to activate him, Questor wakes up on his own, gives himself a human face, and leaves the laboratory to find his creator and learn why he was made. Questor understands facts and calculations, but ordinary conversation and human behavior are still new to him. So the professor's former assistant, Jerry Robinson, becomes his reluctant companion. Their search takes them to London, while project head Jeffrey Darrow launches a manhunt for the missing android. At the time, 2 of the most sophisticated artificial intelligences seen on screen were HAL in 2001: A Space Odyssey and the supercomputer in Colossus: The Forbin Project. Both had been created to carry out human goals, but ended up becoming threats. Questor was different. He was a humanoid intelligence created to protect humanity, and the story never turned him into the enemy. NBC gave the project a 13-episode order, but the proposed series would have removed Jerry Robinson and given Questor a series of romantic interests. Roddenberry rejected those changes and walked away, so no additional episodes were ever produced. There were further attempts to develop a new version of the Questor Tapes in the 2000s and again in 2010, but nothing ever came of them. Questor wasn't Roddenberry's only crack at the format. Genesis 2 had aired a year earlier, and a few months after the Questor Tapes, he tried the same idea again with Planet Earth. Genesis 2 opens with NASA scientist Dylan Hunt, played by Alex Cord, announcing that his story begins on the day he died. Hunt volunteers for a suspended animation experiment meant for deep space astronauts, but an earthquake hits during the test, and he doesn't wake up until 2133, 154 years later. By then, nuclear war has left the world divided into rival societies. Pax is an underground community made up of descendants of Hunt's former NASA colleagues, and it is trying to rebuild civilization. The Tyranians are a ruling class of mutants who keep ordinary humans as slaves and control them with ornate devices called stims. Some details in Genesis 2 have become especially amusing with age. Lyra, played by Mariette Hartley, appears in a rainbow bikini designed to show off the race's most memorable mutation, 2 navels. Roddenberry later joked that NBC's censors had refused to allow visible navels on Star Trek, so this time he gave Hartley 2. Genesis ends with Hunt joining Pax, clearly setting up the adventures that were supposed to follow. But CBS passed on the series in favor of a television version of Planet of the Apes. A year later, Roddenberry tried again, this time with Planet Earth. It reuses several Genesis 2 characters, along with its establishing shots, props, and sets, and builds its whole premise out of one throwaway line Hunt hears while touring the mutant city. Somewhere out there, a matriarchal society keeps men as pets. Alex Cord was replaced by John Saxon, a decade before A Nightmare on Elm Street, with Dylan Hunt now working full-time for Pax. And as you have probably guessed from the fact that it is in this video, that pilot did not get picked up either. The Day After Tomorrow, known in the United Kingdom as Into Infinity, was produced by Jerry Anderson between the first and second seasons of Space 1999. The idea was to introduce scientific concepts to younger viewers through an accessible adventure story. The story follows the Alteris, a spacecraft equipped with a photon drive and carrying 2 families to Alpha Centauri in search of Earth-like planets for colonization. Traveling at near light speed demonstrates Einstein's theory of relativity. The crew experiences only a few years, while many more pass back on Earth. After reaching Alpha Centauri, they push farther into space, survive a meteor shower and a dying red giant, and are eventually pulled into a black hole. The ship emerges in another universe, leaving the crew alive but unable to return home. The narrator makes it clear that this was supposed to be only the beginning, but Anderson could not secure funding for more episodes. Even a planned novelization was cancelled once it became clear that the series would not continue, and it remained unpublished. It first aired in the United States in December 1975 as the third episode of NBC's Special Treat. I cannot say that everything here has aged well, and unless you first saw it after coming home from school, its problems will probably be obvious. The science is not always as accurate as the program claims, but it is still a solid little piece of 1970s children's science fiction, and I think it could have made a decent series. Where Have All the People Gone is a slightly uncertain fit for this list. I was inclined to think of it as a movie with an open ending, though I've also seen it described as a pilot for a series that was never picked up. Either way, why pass up the chance to talk about a good film? The story was written by Louis John Carlino, who had also written the screenplay for Seconds in 1966, and the film was directed by John Moxey, who, incidentally, had directed Genesis 2 the year before. Stephen Anders is camping in the high Sierras with his teenage children when a flash in the sky and an earthquake strike. Their friend, who was outside, soon falls ill and dies, leaving behind only empty clothes and white powder. The nearby town is deserted, with abandoned cars and more empty clothing everywhere. Stephen and his children head toward their home in Malibu, hoping to find his wife while picking up other survivors and dealing with armed strangers and packs of feral dogs. So yes, it is easy to imagine this becoming a series built around weekly journeys, new obstacles, and another group of unstable survivors waiting down the road. And although the explanation for the disaster is scientifically questionable, the mystery works. Like Gene Roddenberry, whom we mentioned earlier, Irwin Allen made several attempts in the 1970s to recapture his television success from the previous decade. After Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Lost in Space, The Time Tunnel, and Land of the Giants, he produced several pilots that never became series. Of the ones I have seen, I would probably choose Time Travelers. A deadly epidemic is spreading, and modern scientists have no cure. Their research leads them to Dr. Joshua Henderson, who successfully treated a similar disease in 1871, but supposedly died along with his records during the Great Chicago Fire. Two men are sent back through a time portal to recover a sample of the treatment. Unfortunately, a mistake puts them in Chicago only one day before the fire instead of a full week. So they have to find Henderson, convince him that they come from the future, secure the cure, and return before the city burns around them. Jackson Gillis, a veteran television writer whose credits included Perry Mason and Columbo, wrote the teleplay from a story by Rod Serling, the creator of The Twilight Zone. And while Time Travelers is hardly perfect, it is still very watchable and feels a bit more disciplined than a typical Irwin Allen production, avoiding many of his usual excesses. Earlier in 1978, David Rorvik published In His Image, The Cloning of a Man, a best-selling book claiming that an unnamed millionaire had secretly hired scientists to create a clone of himself. The story was widely believed to be a hoax, but it caused a great deal of public fascination with human cloning. The book appeared in March, and The Clone Master aired that September, arriving right in the middle of that wave of interest. And the project didn't come from just anyone. The original idea came from science fiction writer Frederick Pohl, while John D. F. Black wrote the teleplay and produced the film. Black had previously written for and worked as an associate producer on the original Star Trek. At a secret desert laboratory, biochemist Simon Shane is trying to perfect human cloning with funding from a mysterious government agency. Then the agency's representative is murdered, the laboratory is found to be bugged, and Simon's superior, Dr. Ezra Luthen, is abducted. A man named Albert Salt contacts Simon, claims to be the secret backer behind the project, and offers him unlimited funding. That is when Simon reveals what he has really been working on: 12 clones of himself. Each one wakes up with Simon's memories, but they gradually begin developing their own personalities. They also discover that Simon can communicate with each of them telepathically. The film takes almost half its running time to reach the clones, But once it does, it becomes much more interesting. Art Hindle plays Simon and all 12 copies, giving them enough small differences to feel like individuals rather than identical props. The effects also do a respectable job of putting several versions of him in the same scene. By the end, the clones are sent around the world to take on different identities and jobs. That certainly leaves room for more stories, especially given their telepathic link to Simon. But as you can probably guess, I have to end on a sad note. None of it ever happened.